I know what you're trying to do, sir. It ain't gonna work.
No, Sergeant Keller, you don't know what I'm trying to do. If I walk out that door, everything you did will be declassified. I'm here to clean up this mess. If you cooperate.
Honestly, you guys are asking me a lot of questions and I'm starting to get really nervous right now. You're stressing me out. Infinity Ward makes Call of Duty, Gearbox makes Borderlands, and From Software makes Souls games. But what if they wanted to do something different? Like, really different? Well, the publisher overlords like Activision and 2K aren't going to let that happen these days. But 20 years ago, things were a little different, and EA, of all companies, let a little British developer branch out from their success and try something they wanted to do. That's the story of how the Burnout series creators at Criterion Games ended up creating the cult classic first-person shooter, Black. It's a color! Nah, I'm just kidding, but let's start with that name. It doesn't stand out at all. In fact, if you search for it on Xbox's list of backward-compatible games with just the search term Black, it's still the 15th game on the list. It was named after a black operation, one that the government can't acknowledge because they're doing a little oopsie with the law and they know it, and you also play as a CIA Black Ops member. But we couldn't call it like Ops or Black Ops. No, that would be way too easy to explain when someone asks you what you're playing. Hey man, what you playing? Oh, Black. Isn't that a color? Alex Ward, one of the co-founders of Criterion, described what they were doing with Black as what Burnout did for racing games, and in many ways I actually think they nailed it, yet not many people seem to have played this game. But here's what I mean. I'm a casual car guy. I can't fix them, but I love cars, I love racing games, I gawk at a Corvette I've seen 1,000 times each time I see one on the road, but I don't love Burnout personally. Burnout is a racing game that I really think is made exactly for the people that are not like me. The cars aren't real, the speed is unrealistic to an extreme, it's arcade as hell with no apologies, and even though it's not for me, it is kind of perfect for what it's trying to be. Black is exactly like that for people that like an FPS now and then, but just because they think it's cool. The guns are all real, but the designs are completely unrealistic and exaggerated, the magazines are enormous because reloading is for losers, and the sound design is so good it literally won awards by not bothering to match the real guns at all, to the point that they literally pitch adjust multiple of the same gun in a firefight just because it sounds cool. If you're rolling your eyes in disgust, then this game isn't for you. But for everyone else who wants a piece of what the developers called gun porn, this is the type of shooter you can't find in today's market. The gameplay of Black doesn't look like anything special by today's standards, but this footage was entirely captured from the PS2 version of the game, with no upscaling to speak of. Black was released at the end of the 6th generation. After the end, really. The Xbox 360 was already out. There was no PC version either. PS2 and Xbox Original, or whatever Microsoft wants you to call it, are the only two versions of the game, and they haven't ported it to PC to this day. These graphics for that generation of consoles are incredible, and there's destruction on par or better than Red Faction Guerrilla, which wouldn't come out for another 3 years on the next-gen consoles. Shoot an RPG into a building and watch as the entire thing collapses, including the floors above where you shot, and dust flies everywhere. Blow up everything from cars to fuel tanks to the cover enemies sit behind. Throw a grenade and see and hear the glass blow out in front of you. This may be standard now, but actually, hang on a minute. What the hell was up with that grenade throw? Oh, they're shooting at us from all sides. I'll have to take them out with a quick grenade. I'll have to throw it as far as I possibly can to reach them. Alright, you can do this. Remember your days as a quarterback. We got this. Ah! Nailed it. That was the most pathetic grenade toss I've ever seen in a game. Anyway, like I was saying, all of this is standard now and the graphics are even better, but back in 2006 what was on offer here was a technological marvel. Each level also has a main objective and a series of side objectives that involve finding different things and blowing enough stuff to Kingdom Come, and on higher difficulties you have to complete a certain amount of these before you can complete the level. Also, you can't jump for some reason. As for the story though, that Criterion guy, Alex Ward, was also quoted saying, "All I'll say is that we've worked extremely hard to try and overcome some of the problems and frustrations that we all have with video game storytelling." And in fact, the game was applauded by critics for its down-to-earth story, but I have a bit of a different take, though maybe that's my bias as someone playing it for the first time in 2025. There's no subtitles, so you have to work out the story as best as you can without them, and the way it's presented makes that very difficult. They chose to use these live action scenes before each mission to present it that I find really difficult to follow, but that's not the end of it. They don't completely explain everything before just dropping you into a level and expecting you to get more of the story from character dialogue that happens in the middle of a firefight 90% of the time. You are CIA Black Ops agent Jack Keller, being interrogated on what happened when you were going after the Russian terrorist group 7th Wave.
Alright, Keller, listen up. You need to tell us everything you know about 7th Wave, starting from back at the Black Operation.
Finding heavy weapons like a shotgun to blow down doors or even walls sometimes is a pretty fun aspect to finding things in this game, and you get taught to do it right away so the devs can tell you how this game functions. Back in the day, I never would have assumed that I could shoot a door down in a video game. I mean, hell, even now I wouldn't assume it. Aesthetics are also immediately important. As you pick up the shotgun and an AK-47 in the first area, it even blurs out the background behind you as you're reloading to simulate focusing on the gun instead of the action behind you. Aiming is done with just a dot in the center of the screen, and there are objectives listed for you, but not a single map or HUD arrow in sight. If you're tired of the yellow paint showing you everything you can interact with, the most this game allows is changing your aiming dot to black when you're aiming at something you can blow up. It seems Mr. Keller is a bit of a bad boy, because at the end of the first mission, you're told to hold and he does not listen to that for a second. Inside, apparently he was ambushed by one of the leaders of 7th Wave, who turned out to be American and didn't fire on him. An RPG goes off right after, and Keller gets away, and is then deployed to take out some 7th Wave weapons. This game takes an interesting approach to stealth that it doesn't bother to explain to you at all, and confused the shit out of me at first. Besides the fact that we just get dumped off to the next location without any more explanation than we had to destroy the weapons cache, I figured with the silencer you could fire on guys that were alone, but no, that is not how it works. In order to get a silent kill in this game, you have to get a headshot. I eventually found that out with a loading screen tip much farther into the game, so I did this entire stealth section getting caught constantly when I thought I was being super stealthy.
Whoa, boys, this is the Taco Bell.
There is very rarely any music at all playing in this game, which was a strange choice. I've said enough about the story for you to know it's not the real star of the show, the guns are. It even goes along with how they describe the game, so I get it, but having music only occasionally and trying to use the gun sounds that they worked super hard on be your music still feels strange. I'd have to imagine a lot of that is me being used to modern sound design though, because once again, this game was considered a massive achievement in that area when it came out, winning Best Art and Sound at the 2006 British Develop Industry Excellence Awards. So when music played here for this random section for a short time, it made me feel like something super important was about to happen, but it's no different than any other part of the level. The other CIA agent you're working with during this mission tells Keller that the American he's looking for that is working for 7th Wave is William Lennox, a former CIA member.
Alright, fine, you got your Taco Bell. Can you answer some questions now? Okay, yeah, I think I'm calm. I can answer some questions now.
But first, we have to continue our mission to blow up their weapons, and to do that, we have to cross this graveyard as a sniper fires on us from far away. Using the gravestones as cover is pretty fun, but even more fun is after you storm their building and take the sniper, it becomes your turn to do the same thing back on the other side, which is a good take on the classic FPS sniper section. Also, it didn't tell you how to zoom in, so I accidentally threw a grenade. Keller is definitely not making the NFL, that's for sure. Oh, hey guys, how's it going? Not friends, not friends! The next part is where I'm man enough to admit that it's me. I'm the guy that needs the yellow paint. I got completely lost here and had to look up some random Let's Play just to figure out how to get out of this ruined town. I like the lack of waypoints in HUD, but after a certain point they could have at least had the other agent I was with walk in the right direction or something. I had no idea where to go. We're a few levels in now and still heading for the weapons factory. How the previous location and this one are connected is a constant mystery in this game for me, just like how Keller ended up with this cool new gun that has rails all over it for absolutely no reason other than it looks cool. There's a minefield in front of the foundry we're trying to get into that causes chain explosions everywhere that look amazing and make it really fun to traverse. Then later on you get sniper support from Agent McCarver, the woman that's been working with us, and she is the actual least useful sniper support I have ever seen in my life. Unless it was me with the sniper, then it would be worse. We make our way into the foundry and destroy the weapons equipment, which it makes no effort to point out, but is pretty obvious, so I didn't get lost this time. I pick up a P90, which is one of my favorite real-world weapons because of how weird it is, and learn that, according to Black, the P90 is the one thing even less accurate than the US jobs numbers. And then the mission just kind of ends out of nowhere, as we learn in the interrogation that we're apparently now after one of the other 7th Wave bosses in an asylum. This is now the second shooter I've covered on the channel from that era that had an asylum, which is something Nichols, something twice, whatever. As we're storming it, we start with an MP5, but what the fuck? Why does he reload it like that? Oh yeah, you've been a naughty girl. Keller, you're a freak. This is another bit that I don't think the game communicates well, as you need to destroy the fortification in front of the entrance to move on, and enemies will slowly spawn forever until you do. I got stuck here for a few minutes as well because I didn't realize that's what I needed to do. I only vaguely remembered McCarver mentioning it once, and it takes so many grenades I almost didn't think I could. Time to ignore orders to hold position and charge on in there again. This is the first time I died since I'm just playing on normal, and I realized how unforgiving the checkpoints can be in this game. Just clearing a small section or even an entire room is not enough to prove your worth to Daddy Black. Okay, wait a minute, that came out wrong. Anyway, you have to go pretty far between each checkpoint, and I had to repeat this opening area of the asylum a few times because I died at various places that all seemed far enough to get a checkpoint for me. I also hadn't figured out the stealth yet, so that wasn't helping anything. I still think normal is the right difficulty to play this on though. It offered a decent challenge, especially later in the game, without stepping into frustrating territory, maybe except for the checkpoints in this particular level. I also want to mention now that I've picked enough of these collectibles up, that this is the most insanely well-informed terrorist group I have ever seen. They are incredible at their jobs. Every single one of these is some top-tier intel, and I didn't even find a lot of them. A+ terroristing, guys. Successfully storming the asylum gets us intel on our real target, Lennox, by a little character building with the 7th Wave leader, and that leads us to some docks, where we receive the coolest video game shotgun I have ever seen. Video game shotguns always rule, but this thing is incredible, and the sounds and animations for it make it so satisfying to use. I was already a believer in the weapon design and sound work in this game, but that shotgun single-handedly made me understand why this game is so highly praised. Rule of Cool doesn't just have to apply to character action games, it can apply to anything, and this is the result of making the weapons your main character. Then just to exemplify how hard this story is to follow, at the end of this level we get this dramatic scene with a bunch of dead Black Ops members we're probably supposed to feel bad for, but I have no fucking idea who they are.
We lost a lot of good people.
Yeah, I guess we did, Keller. Continuing on in our search for Lennox, we now have to cross this bridge, which really makes you feel how dangerous a choke like that is for the real military. It's fortified to an unbelievable level with a ton of Russian terrorists in the way, and despite being unremarkable from a story perspective, and not that visually interesting as it's just a bridge, they still managed to make it one of the more memorable levels in an FPS like this for me, and the most memorable level in this game. And I finally figured out the stealth on it while also setting the M16 to single fire, which made it way easier. Okay, I said I made it easier, not that it made me better. It does make you realize how insanely tanky these enemies are, though. They can take more shots than Bonnie Blue. With that, we're inside the gulag and getting ready for the final level of the game. Yeah, this game is really short. I'll get back to that later. First, we have a solo mission once again sneaking through the gulag in search of Lennox. This is one of the more open level designs of the game that I really enjoyed. Deeper in, I found the game's Magnum for the first time, and I have to bring that up like the shotgun because it's one of the coolest and most powerful Magnums I've ever seen in a game like this. You're constantly pulling back the hammer after every shot before you can fire again, and it even has a speed loader that Keller likes to investigate every time for no reason. Except when he doesn't, because I hadn't noticed it beforehand, but Black also has unique reload animations depending on whether you're under fire or not, and you reload faster when you are. The game encourages you to use cover, but you need to head out directly into fire constantly, and it rewards you for doing it. The final confrontation is just a boatload of enemies until you destroy some machine gun nests, and then we're back to the interrogation. We're told that Lennox survived, and that the interrogator heard exactly what he wanted to, so they have faked Keller's death so he can continue his work as a Black operative to track down Lennox. And that's it, the game ends.
Alright, Keller, I think we're done here. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I didn't exactly what we wanted to hear you say, son. Congratulations, we've already faked your death. Welcome to the team. You're letting me go? You're happy? Okay.
The entire story is just about tracking down one American defector turned terrorist. You don't even catch him before it sets up a sequel that would never come, and then you hit credits. Black is undoubtedly a very good first-person shooter, especially for its time, and I can see why it's heralded as one of the best of its era, but I can also see why it wasn't a huge commercial success. Besides the obvious fact that no one knew what to expect from a new franchise made by racing game devs, the title of the game is just too vague and simple. It can work sometimes, but making it hard to search up and easy to forget was not the best move for something so new and risky. At the same time, while the approach to sound and weapon design was great, the story leaves a lot to be desired. It was praised for its story by critics like I said, but I have to disagree. There's plenty of room for a grounded military story in games that aren't filled with set-piece explosion after set-piece explosion, but chasing down a single guy that you never actually catch, and more importantly, never even actually see for yourself, is just not enough to make the story interesting. And the presentation of that story has you plopping about into different levels with no real idea of how Keller got there or what he was even there for, unless you managed to catch the one line of dialogue that explained it in the hard-to-hear live-action scenes, or in the in-game dialogue while a million weapons that are intentionally louder than anything else on screen are firing off. Another issue is that the game just isn't long enough. You can play it for cheap enough now that it really isn't an issue, but paying full price for a game when it came out that has a campaign mode I beat in only 4 hours, including getting lost for about 15 minutes in that town, is just asking way too much. There is no multiplayer or other modes to speak of to occupy your time. The only way to extend your time with it is to try out the harder difficulties, which require you to complete more and more of the side objectives in each mission, and even take away the small health pickups that enemies drop to add some difficulty. But in my opinion, that's just not enough. Call of Duty 3 would come out later that year and change what people would expect from a console FPS forever, but even back then, you would have expected at least a split-screen multiplayer mode like GoldenEye that could have been really fun. I can see myself getting that Magnum and having a blast terrorizing my friends with it until they finally managed to take me down, but instead, that was never on offer. Black is a game I would definitely recommend if you think guns are cool and enjoy a single-player FPS. If you've never played it like I hadn't, it won't take you long to see why everyone that has been talking it up for years. There was a plan for a sequel at Criterion, but their EA overlords weren't happy with the success of this one and wouldn't greenlight it, so that never happened. A good portion of the Criterion dev team moved over to Codemasters and later developed a spiritual successor to Black called Body Count in 2021. but that game is just nothing like this one. I didn't even include it in this video like I did for Area 51's spiritual successor because while that game was at least funny bad, body count is just bad. And that's the end of anything to do with Black's Legacy. You can still get it on backwards compatibility for Xbox, but that's the only real way of playing it since there is no PC port, unless you have a PS2 lying around. It's too bad the shooter market is drowned out by the Call of Duties and Battlefields of the world today, and single-player FPSs don't come out nearly as often as they used to, so it's unlikely that we would get anything like this anytime soon. I'll be hoping for my modern military shooting games to add a little more flavor like this one did going forward. And that being said, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like it or subscribe if you want to help me grow and see more like this one. And I am Abandoned Save, and I'll see you in the next one.